The late afternoon sun cast long, elegant shadows across the Smith family's horse ranch, glinting off the polished leather of saddles and the flanks of powerful thoroughbreds. At the center of this opulent world was Eve Smith, CEO of the Smith Group, his posture impossibly straight atop a magnificent black stallion. Flanked by his two brothers, he surveyed his domain with an air of bored indifference. "Any word from the investigators?" his younger brother, Leo, asked, reining in his chestnut mare. Eve's jaw tightened, the same as always. "They find girls named Hazel, but none of them are her." The name of their long-lost sister hung in the air, a ghost that had haunted their family for 15 years. A short distance away, near the meticulously kept stables, Eliza clutched a crisp envelope to her chest, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. She worked here, cleaning stalls and grooming horses to support herself and her mother. But this letter was her escape. "Mom, look," she whispered, her voice vibrating with pure joy. She showed the acceptance letter to her mother, Emily. Willis Business School, a full scholarship. Emily's worn face broke into a radiant smile, her eyes welling with tears. "Oh, my brilliant girl, I knew you could do it." Their quiet celebration was shattered by a voice as sharp and cold as ice. "What's this?" A stable hand dreaming of the boardroom. Eve had dismounted, his expensive riding boots making no sound on the soft turf. His brothers smirked behind him, a pack of handsome wolves circling their prey. Eliza flinched, instinctively hiding the letter behind her back. "It's nothing, Mr. Smith." "It didn't look like nothing," Eve drawled, his eyes locking onto the corner of the envelope. He moved with a predator's grace, snatching it from her grasp before she could react. His gaze scanned the first line, and a cruel, dismissive laugh escaped his lips. "Willis Business School. Don't be ridiculous. People like you don't belong in places like that. You serve people like us." He held the letter aloft, a symbol of her impossible dream. Then, with a deliberate, theatrical flick of his wrist, he let it fall. The pristine white paper fluttered down, landing directly in a pile of fresh, steaming horse manure. Eliza's breath hitched, a hot, furious shame washed over her. The letter, her future, lay desecrated in the filth. "Go on," Eve commanded, his voice soft but laced with steel. "Pick it up, if you want it so badly." Leo and the others snickered, enjoying the show. Eliza stood frozen, her fists clenched, tears of rage and humiliation blurring her vision. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. She couldn't. Suddenly, Emily rushed forward, her face a mask of desperation. She fell to her knees before Eve, her hands clasped in supplication. "Please, sir, don't do this to her. She works so hard." When Eve simply stared down at her, his expression unmoved, a terrible, gut-wrenching sob escaped Emily's throat. "I'll get it. I'll clean it for her. I'll lick it clean, sir. Just please, don't take this from her." The offer hung in the air, grotesque and horrifying. "Mom, no," Eliza screamed, lunging to pull her mother back. "Don't you dare. It's not worth it." But the damage was done. To see a mother willing to perform the most degrading act for her daughter's dream was seared into Eliza's mind. Eve watched, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, before he turned and walked away, his power asserted, his cruelty sated. That night, the fragile world Eliza fought so hard to protect finally shattered. A sleek black car had delivered a file to their cramped, humble home. Inside was a private investigator's report, cold and clinical. Eliza confronted her mother in their small living room, the damning pages trembling in her hand. "It says you have a criminal record, Mom. It says you were in prison for kidnapping." The words felt alien on her tongue. Emily crumbled. Years of carefully constructed lies dissolved in a torrent of guilt-ridden tears. "It's true," she choked out, her body racked with sobs. 15 years ago, my own baby, my Eliza. She got sick. She died in my arms. Her voice was a raw, broken whisper. I was lost. I was insane with grief. I was at the park, and I saw a little girl, all alone. She had your eyes. I took her. I named you after my daughter. Your real name is Hazel. The world tilted on its axis. Every memory, every hug, every lullaby became a lie. Eliza wasn't Eliza. Her mother wasn't her mother. She was a stolen child. She was Hazel, the name Eve had spoken with such frustration at the ranch echoed in the silent, suffocating room. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard about your mother. A kidnapper doesn't deserve your loyalty. People like us can give you the life you deserve. It was a snake's whisper, one of Eve's circle, twisting the knife. The cruelty was strategic, designed to isolate her, to break her completely. Feeling utterly lost, adrift in a sea of betrayal, Eliza stumbled to a small wooden box where she kept her few childhood mementos. A name, a fragmented memory from a life she couldn't recall, surfaced through the fog of her shock. Sam, her fingers, numb and clumsy, found a faded, crumpled piece of paper tucked into the lining, a name and a phone number she didn't remember ever seeing before. It was a lifeline in an ocean of lies. With nothing left to lose, she dialed. Miles away, in a dingy office reeking of stale cigarettes, a phone rang. A grizzled man named Sam answered it gruffly. Yeah. Is this Sam? A young woman's voice asked, trembling and uncertain. My name is Eliza. Or maybe it's Hazel. I was told you might know who I am. Sam froze. The name Hazel clicked into place, connecting to the news reports he'd followed for years. Hazel Smith, the lost heiress. He pulled up a webpage on his dusty monitor, his eyes widening at the number displayed in bold text. $10 million reward. A slow, predatory grin spread across his face. He, the original trafficker who had sold the child all those years ago, had just hit the jackpot. Hazel, he said, his voice now oozing synthetic warmth and concern. I've been waiting for your call for a very, very long time. Riverside Villa shimmered under the afternoon sun, a monument of glass and stone nestled by a tranquil mermaid river. Inside, the air was thick with a strange, boyish excitement. The four Smith brothers, titans of industry on any other day, stood awkwardly in the ground floor, their powerful frames looking almost comical in the crisp, tailored uniforms of their old preparatory school. Eve, the most formidable of them, tugged at the unfamiliar knot of his tie, his usual mask of cold authority replaced by a nervous tension that vibrated through the marble-floored hall. Do you think she remembered the treehouse? Asked Leo, the youngest, his voice tight with anticipation. She was 4, Leo, Eve clipped, his gaze fixed on the ornate double doors. She won't remember anything. But his own mind was a frantic collage of faded memories. A tiny hand in his, a gap-toothed giggle, the scent of lavender soap. For 20 years, their sister, Hazel, had been a ghost they chased, a void at the center of their family. Today, she was supposed to become real. The door swung open. Sam, a man whose smile never quite reached his eyes, entered with a theatrical flourish, pushing a young woman forward. It was Eliza, dressed in worn-out jeans and a faded t-shirt. She looked like a stray bird swept into a palace, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and terror. The brothers' hopeful smiles faltered. This small, unassuming woman couldn't possibly be the princess from their memories. Their Hazel was a legend, a cherished myth. This girl was painfully, disappointingly ordinary. Gentlemen, Sam announced, his voice booming with full sincerity. May I present Hazel Smith? Eve's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, his brothers flanking him like a royal guard. "There's one way to be sure," he said, his voice a low command. "The birthmark on her right wrist. Show us." Eliza flinched, instinctively pulling her arm back. "What birthmark?" "I don't know what you're talking about," ignoring her protests. Eve's brother, Julian, a man with a surgeon's precise movements, gently but firmly took her arm. He pushed back the sleeve of her shirt. All eyes fell on her slender wrist. It was pale, unblemished, and utterly devoid of the distinctive heart-shaped mark that had branded the Smith women for generations. The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. The fragile hope shattered, replaced by cold, violent fury. "A fraud," Leo spat, his face contorting with disgust. Sam's smile finally vanished. "Wait, there must be a mistake. She's the one. I swear it." "The reward." "Get him out," Eve ordered, his voice dangerously quiet. He didn't even look at Sam as security guards materialized and dragged the sputtering man away. His gaze, burning with the intensity of a betrayed zealot, was locked on Eliza. "You thought you could fool us. You thought you could walk in here and steal a life that isn't yours." He grabbed a slice of the elaborate welcome cake from a nearby table, a confection of rosewater and cream meant for their long-lost sister. "Our Hazel loved cake," he snarled, shoving it toward her mouth. "Eat it, since you want to be here so badly. Let's see you enjoy a welcome." Eliza choked as the cloyingly sweet pastry was forced past her lips, crumbs scattering down her front. Tears streamed down her face, a mix of fear and humiliation. The brothers circled her like wolves, their earlier excitement twisted into a cruel sport. Julian uncorked a bottle of vintage wine, worth more than Eliza had ever earned in a year, and tilted it to her mouth. The dark liquid sloshed down her chin, staining her shirt like blood. "Look at you. Another brother. Marcus," jeered, a gutter rat trying on a crown, through the haze of tears and suffocating sweetness. A spark of defiance ignited within Eliza. She was not some pawn in their sick game. She wrenched her head away, the wine splashing onto the polished floor. She met Eve's glacial stare, her own eyes blazing with a newfound fire. "I don't want to be your sister," she gasped, her voice but clear. "I would rather die than be a sister to monsters like you." Her words struck Eve with the force of a physical blow. For a fleeting second, the rage in his eyes flickered, revealing a chasm of profound, agonizing hurt. This imposter, this liar, was rejecting the one thing he had wanted back his entire life. The wound, fresh and deep, hardened his features into a mask of pure malice. Just as he lunged for her, the Vios doors burst open again. The Smith matriarch stood there, a face a storm of fury. "Sam was here," she accused, her eyes sweeping over the scene of degradation. "I told you that man was a known fraudster." Her arrival did nothing to quell Eve's rage. It only fueled it. He saw Eliza not as a person, as the embodiment of his family's pain and his own dashed hopes. With a guttural roar, he seized her by the arms and dragged her toward the large, decorative water feature that ran through the center of the foyer. "You want to make a scene? Fine." He shoved her hard. Eliza cried out as she lost her balance, tumbling backward into the deep, shockingly cold water. The splash echoed through the hall, a sound of final, brutal punishment. Eliza. A panicked scream sliced through the tense air. Emily, her face pale and streaked with tears, rushed into the villa, her frantic eyes scanning the chaos until they landed on the struggling figure in the water. She ran toward the matriarch, her body trembling. "Please. You don't understand. That's her. That's Hazel." The matriarch regarded her with cold disdain. "We've already seen her wrist, you fool. There is no birthmark. She is an imposter, just like her keeper." "No." Emily's voice cracked with desperation. "The birthmark, it's gone. When she was a little girl, She fell against a hot iron. It burned her wrist, right where the mark was. She pointed a shaking finger at Eliza, who was now gasping for air, her right arm clinging to the stone edge of the pool. Look at the scar. A wave of stunned silence washed over the room. The matriarch's gaze snapped from Emily to the girl in the water. Her eyes narrowed, focusing on the pale, puckered tissue on Eliza's wrist. A scar, perfectly shaped like a tilted, melted heart. The truth slammed into her with the force of a tidal wave. This drenched, terrified girl wasn't an imposter. She was the real thing. She was their Hazel. Horror dawned on her face, erasing every trace of anger. She turned to her sons, her voice a strangled, urgent command that ripped through the villa. Get her out of the water. Now, that's your sister. The rhythmic, sterile beep of a heart monitor was the only sound that dared to fill the opulent recovery suite of Riverside Villa. Hazel lay pale and still against sheets of an impossible thread count, and feline taped to the back of her hand. Her damp hair fanned out across the pillow, a dark contrast to her ashen skin. The Smith family, a formidable unit now reduced to a circle of ghosts, hovered around the bed. The matriarch, her usual iron composure shattered, wrung her hands. Her sons Eve, Liam, and Cole stood stiffly, their expensive suits looking absurd in the face of such raw, medical fragility. They were titans of industry who couldn't fix this. It was Emily who broke the silence, her body collapsing into a heap on the marble floor. Sobs tore from her chest, ugly and unrestrained. It was me, she choked out, her voice a ragged whisper that cawed at the air. The Smiths turned, their collective gaze a mixture of confusion and dawning horror. My little girl. She was born with a weak heart, Emily confessed, her words tumbling out between gasps, directed at the family she had wronged, but also at the universe that had wronged her first. She only lived for 3 days. I was empty. When I saw Hazel at the hospital, so perfect, so alone for just a moment, I took her. I know it was wrong, but she filled a hole in my heart so big I thought I was going to die. She became my Eliza, my everything. The matriarch's face contorted, a mask of grief and fury. You stole her, she hissed, her voice trembling with the weight of 20 lost years. You stole my granddaughter and let us believe she was gone forever. Her anger was a wildfire, but as she looked back at the still form on the bed, it was instantly quenched by a wave of terror. Nothing mattered but the fragile life in front of her. A low moan escaped Hazel's lips. Her eyelids fluttered, then slowly opened. The world swam into focus, a blur of worried, unfamiliar faces. No, not unfamiliar. They were the faces of her tormentors. Eve, the man who had looked at her with such disdain. His brothers, who had treated her like vermin. The powerful old woman who had regarded her as less than dust. And Emily, her mother, her kidnapper, Eliza. Emily sobbed, crawling forward. Baby, I'm so sorry. Hazel, the matriarch corrected, her voice soft but firm. Her name is Hazel. Hazel flinched as if struck. She pushed herself up on her elbows, her body screaming in protest. Her gaze swept over them, cold and sharp as broken glass. Get away from me, she rasped, her throat raw. All of you. The words landed like stones, shattering the fragile hope in the room. Eve took a hesitant step forward, his hands outstretched in a useless gesture of peace. The arrogant CEO was gone, replaced by a man hollowed out by regret. Hazel, he began, his voice thick with an emotion she had never heard from him before. We didn't know. We can't tell you how sorry we are for everything. A bitter, humorless laugh escaped her lips. Sorry. The word was poison on her tongue. Her eyes, burning with fever and fury, locked onto his. Is that what you think this requires, an apology? Sorry doesn't erase being humiliated in front of your entire company. It doesn't undo the files you threw in my face or the way you looked at me like I was something you'd scraped off your shoe. She turned her glare on his brothers. It doesn't make the memory of being locked in a freezing storage room just disappear. You didn't just dislike me. You enjoy hurting me. The brothers flinched, shame coloring their faces. They had no defense. She was right. Her gaze finally settled on Emily, the woman she had called Mom her entire life. The betrayal, there was a wound so deep she couldn't yet comprehend its edges. The police were waiting outside. The family had called them the moment the DNA results were confirmed. Now, the decision was hers. She swallowed, the act feeling like swallowing sand. She broke the law, Hazel stated, her voice devoid of emotion. It was a shield against the agony tearing her apart. She committed a crime. She has to answer for it. With that single, devastating judgment, she severed the last tie to the life she had known. Emily let out a final, heartbreaking wail as the matriarch quietly signaled the security guard at the door. Even with Emily gone, the air remained thick with unresolved anguish. Hazel hugged her knees to her chest, a fortress of one. I don't forgive you, she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, each word a carefully placed stone building a wall around her. You are my family by blood, but you have proven you are not my family in spirit. Now, please, I want to be alone. Defeated, the matriarch and her sons retreated into the hallway, the heavy click of the door sealing Hazel in with her turmoil. In the corridor, Eve's mother, who had been silent until now, finally broke down, leaning against her husband for support. She hates us, she cried. My own daughter hates us. What did we expect? Mother. Eve's voice was raw, that she'd fall into our arms after we treated her like garbage for months. We did this, his brothers nodded in grim agreement, their usual swagger completely gone. Guilt was a heavy cloak they were unaccustomed to wearing. After a few minutes of strained silence, Eve squared his shoulders. He turned to his brothers, a new, desperate resolve in his eyes. Without another word, the three of them pushed the door open again and re-entered the room. Hazel looked up, her eyes flashing with anger. I said, leave me alone. Eve ignored her command. He and his brothers walked to the foot of her bed and stood in a line. Then, in a stunning act of penance, they lowered their heads. An apology isn't enough, Eve said, his voice steady and low. You're right, words are meaningless. So, we're offering something else. He met her confused, hostile gaze. We hurt you. We humiliated you. We caused you pain. So hurt us back. Hit us. Scream at us. Throw something, whatever it takes for you to let some of that anger out. We'll take it. We deserve it. Liam and Cole nodded, their faces grim, bracing for a verdict that was far more terrifying than any business negotiation. They offered themselves up for judgment. Three powerful men surrendering completely to the young woman they had so terribly wronged. The ground living room, with its soaring ceilings and cold, immaculate surfaces, felt more like a museum than a home. But Mrs. Smith, her mother, gently took Hazel's arm, her touch surprisingly firm, filled with a desperate, unspoken plea. There's something I need to show you, Hazel, something we've kept just for you. She led Hazel down a quiet hallway, away from the watchful eyes of the household staff, to an unassuming wooden door tucked behind a tapestry. With a turn of an antique key, the door swung inward, not with a creak, but with a soft sigh, as if it had been waiting to exhale a long-held secret. The air that drifted out was different, not of polish and sterile wealth, but of paper and preserved fabric, of time held captive. The room wasn't large, but it was filled to bursting. Neatly stacked and arranged on shelves that lined every wall were boxes, all wrapped in different paper, some faded with age, others still vibrant. 15 distinct piles, each one a monument to a year she had been gone. Hazel's breath caught in her throat. It was a breathtaking, heartbreaking shrine. Every year, her mother whispered, her voice thick with unge tears, "For your birthday, for Christmas we bought you gifts. We hoped, we prayed that the next year you'd be here to open them yourself." She stepped forward and lifted the lid from a box on a shelf marked H10. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a delicate silver locket. Tucked beside it was a handwritten letter on heavy cream stationery. Her mother's hand trembled as she picked it up. "My dearest Hazel," she read, her voice cracking on the first word. "Today you are 10. A whole decade. I wonder if your hair is still the color of honey in the sun. I wonder if you still sing when you think no one is listening. We went to the amusement park today, the one you loved. But the world felt gray without your laughter. We will never stop looking for you. Please, wherever you are, be happy. All my love, Mum." One of her brothers, Liam, stepped forward, his expression grim. "That was the year we got a false tip. A woman in a coastal town claimed to have seen you. Mum and Dad spent a month there, drained their accounts, and nearly lost their lives in a storm chasing a ghost. We came back with nothing." Another letter was read, then another. Each one was a testament to their unwavering love, a chronicle of their profound grief. They described a family hollowed out by her absence, a home perpetually shadowed by the ghost of the little girl who was missing. They told harrowing stories of being swindled by charlatans, of chasing dead-end leads across the country, of their mother's health failing under the sheer weight of her agony. The wall Hazel had built around her heart, the one fortified by 15 years of neglect and a lifetime of feeling unwanted, began to crumble. This wasn't a performance. This was the raw, unvarnished truth of a family shattered by loss. Eve, who had remained silent until now, his jaw tight, stepped forward. He wasn't holding a letter. He was holding a small, threadbare teddy bear with one button eye and a faded ribbon tied around its neck. "Do you remember him?" he asked, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "Barnaby. You wouldn't sleep without him. You told me he kept the monsters away." He placed the bear in her hands. The worn fur was impossibly soft, the weight of it achingly familiar. A ghost of a memory flickered in the darkness of her mind, a small hand clutching this exact hair. A feeling of absolute safety, the faint scent of lavender. It was a tangible piece of a past she thought was erased forever. Her fingers tightened around it, a silent anchor in a swirling sea of emotion. "We kept all your things," another brother, Mason, said, his voice gentle. He came forward with a garment bag. He unzipped it to reveal a pristine school uniform, a navy blazer with a gold and crimson crest, a pleated skirt, and a crisp white blouse. It was identical to the one she had seen them in old family photographs. "Mum had one made for you every time we started a new school. We'd hang it in the closet, right next to ours. We used to imagine you walking down the halls with us, complaining about homework, stealing my dessert at lunch. The image was so vivid, so filled with a mundane, beautiful life you'd never had." Dad, a single, hot tear finally escaped and traced a path down her cheek. The dam was breaking. The sheer, overwhelming evidence of their love, the depth of their suffering, it was too much to deny. It was a love that had burned brightly in the dark for 15 years, waiting for her. "Try on," her mother urged, her eyes shining with hope. Hesitantly, Hazel took the uniform. In a small, adjoining powder room, she shed the plain, ill-fitting clothes that had defined her life as Eliza and slipped into the life of Hazel Smith. The blazer settled perfectly on her shoulders, the fabric smooth and substantial. The skirt fell to just the right length. It fit as if it were made for her because it was. Staring at her reflection in the mirror, she saw a stranger. Not the downtrodden Eliza, not the lost and confused Hazel. She saw a girl who belonged. The crest on the blazer wasn't just a symbol of wealth. It was a symbol of identity, of family. For the first time, she didn't feel like an imposter. When she stepped back into the room, a collective gasp went through the air. Her mother's hands flew to her mouth, tears now streaming freely down her face. Her brothers looked at her with a mixture of awe and profound relief, as if seeing a masterpiece finally unveiled. "Oh, my child," her mother sobbed, rushing forward to cup her face. "You are the most beautiful daughter in the world. You're home. You're finally home." Looking into the eyes of this woman, her mother who had suffered so much, who had loved her so fiercely from afar, the last of Hazel's defenses dissolved into nothing. Her voice, when she finally found it, was a quiet revelation. 15 years, she whispered, looking from her mother to her brothers, her gaze finally landing on Eve. "You waited for me for 15 years. It wasn't a question. It was an acknowledgement, an acceptance, a bridge crossing a chasm of lost time." Later, they gathered in the grand living room, which no longer felt cold. It was filled with a warmth that had been absent for over a decade. In the center of the room, on a large mahogany table, sat a magnificent cake, decorated with intricate sugar flowers and the words, "Welcome home." Hazel, her mother, placed a silver knife in her hand, then covered it with her own. One by one, her brothers placed their hands over theirs, a chain of connection, of strength. Together, they made the first cut, a symbolic act severing the painful past and carving out a new future. As applause and quiet cheers filled the room, Eve moved to stand beside her. The arrogant, cruel CEO who had made her life a living hell was gone. In his place stood a brother, his eyes clear of all the anger and bitterness that had once defined him. He looked at her not as an inconvenient new hire, not as a target for his frustration, but as his sister, his lost and now found little sister. He leaned in, his voice low and meant only for her. "I'm so sorry, Hazel, for everything." He then smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. "Welcome home." He pulled her into a hug, and this time, she didn't flinch. She leaned into him, burying her face in his shoulder as the weight of 15 years of loneliness finally lifted. Surrounded by the light and laughter of her family, holding the worn teddy bear in one hand and the love of her brother in the other, Hazel Smith was finally, truly, home.